Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Chris Beers. President Trump gives a speech and lays a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia as the nation celebrates Memorial Day. President Trump says he's considering pulling $3 billion in federal funding from Harvard, citing concerns over anti-Semitism. He suggests sending the money to trade schools instead. Trump delays 50% tariffs on the EU until July, and pay-related worker protests erupt across China amid the U.S.-China trade war. We have analysis. With Republicans' budget bill having passed the House, the Senate is next in line, but Republican senators are warning it's not going to make it far in the upper chamber. We have the latest.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
This Memorial Day, a long, silent chapter of World War II rewritten. After more than 80 years lost beneath the Pacific, 4 American airmen are finally coming home. On March 11, 1944, a B-24 bomber named Heaven Can Wait was hit by enemy fire near New Guinea. All 11 men aboard were killed. Their remains, deep below the vast sea, were designated as non-recoverable. But now, 4 of those crew members are returning to their hometowns thanks to family members' persistence and a daring Navy dive. Staff Sergeant Eugene Darrigan was laid to rest in New York. Second Lieutenant Thomas Kelly is headed to California soon. Second Lieutenant Donald Shepik will be buried in Pennsylvania, and First Lieutenant Herbert Tennyson in Kansas. Led by Thomas Kelly's cousin, the family has searched for the downed flight for 12 years. With 7 men who were on board the plane still unaccounted for, a future mission to the site is possible. Next, Americans across the country today are honoring the sacrifice made by service members by going to cemeteries and monuments. But now there's a push to bring their stories closer to home. Here's that story.
I'm walking towards the grave of Ellen Ainsworth. She's buried here in Plot C.
The final resting place of U.S. Army 2nd Lieutenant Ellen Ainsworth is far from her hometown of Glenwood City, Wisconsin. But the World War II Army nurse still draws visitors at Cicely Rome American Cemetery.
So as we take this sand and rub this across her name, for a family member, it creates this physical and emotional connection.
Cicely Rome American Cemetery, about 40 miles south of Rome, is one of the cemeteries administered by the American Battle Monuments Commission, which maintains monuments to more than 200,000 of the nation's fallen heroes outside of the United States, including the sites like Paris and Normandy.
They are powerful sites of remembrance that are an incredible place to visit and honor the dead of World War I and World War II. However, our audience is the American people, and many Americans will never get the chance to physically journey to one of our cemeteries.
The American Battle Monuments Commission has now partnered with the Department of Veterans Affairs to bring the stories of these service members closer to home, using the VA's Digital Veterans Legacy Memorial.
These American heroes deserve to be remembered and their stories to be told just as any other veteran or service member.
Launched in 2019, VA Program Officer James LaPaglia says the digital database is intended to make the stories of every U.S. veteran more interactive, more vivid, and more accessible.
We wanted to take the cemetery experience beyond the confines of a gate or a cemetery wall.
With their data, the VA has created online memorial pages for more than 10 million U.S. service members in VA and VA grant-funded cemeteries, Department of Defense cemeteries like Arlington National Cemetery, and other sites like the cemeteries abroad. Family members, friends, and the public can submit photos and mementos to populate each page and share a veteran's story. Like Ainsworth's, which ended in February 1944 in Italy. While her hospital was under attack, she moved her patients to safety and died from her own injuries days later. A story Mark Ireland, superintendent of the Cicely Rome American Cemetery, says still inspires.
That idea of, fighting to the very end, not giving up.
And is just one of many to be honored by generations to come.
President Trump highlights the sacrifice of fallen soldiers and their families in his Memorial Day address at Arlington National Cemetery. He also highlights plans for the upcoming military parade to mark America's 250th birthday. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good afternoon, Iris. Tell us more about the president's speech today.
Good afternoon to you as well, Chris. So today, after laying a wreath at the Arlington National Cemetery as part of the presidential tradition, President Trump gave a Memorial Day address to the nation in which he highlights the sacrifices of the many fallen soldiers who contributed to the U.S. success and history. And those, he says, includes the first soldiers at the first battle of the Bunker Hill back in 1775, before, he says, the nation even got its name. Watch.
Those young men could never have known what their sacrifice would mean to us, but we certainly know what we owe to them. Their valor gave us the freest, greatest, and most noble republic ever to exist on the face of the earth, a republic that I am fixing after a long and hard 4 years. That was a hard 4 years we went through.
And President Trump also thanked the members of families of those fallen soldiers, some of whom actually were sitting in the audience today. President Trump called them out, thanked them individually, and gave them a round of applause with the whole audience. Here's what Trump said about them. Watch.
These are wonderful families. In the familiar laugh no longer heard, the empty space at Sunday dinner, or the want of a hug or a pat on the back that will never come again. Every Gold Star family fights a battle long after the victory is won, and today we lift you up and we hold you high. Thank you, thank you, thank you for giving America the brightest light in your lives. It's what you've done.
And during his speech, President Trump also highlighted plans for the upcoming military parade around mid-June happening here in Washington, D.C. to celebrate America's 250th birthday. Trump says the fact that it's happening during his now second term was an arrangement by God. Watch.
I'm glad I missed that second term where it was, because I wouldn't be your president. For that most important of all, in addition, we have the World Cup and we have the Olympics. Can you imagine? I missed that 4 years, and now look what I have. I have everything. Amazing the way things work out. God did that. I believe that too.
And of course, last weekend, President Trump spoke at the West Point Military Academy in upstate New York, where he, of course, honored the nation's history as well as a history of training, of course, these American young people for joining the military. He thanked them for choosing a life of service and reminded them, these graduating cadets, that their mission is to, of course, serve for the country as well as to honor the history of this nation. Back to you.
And Iris, the president also commented on various political issues today during his speech. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So this morning, in a Truth Social post, President Trump threatened to redistribute $3 billion in grants to Harvard University, and now he wants to give them to trade schools. And that marks another escalation, of course, in administration's fight with the elite university. It comes as President Trump says that, quote, what a great investment that would be for the USA and so badly needed. He also criticizes Harvard again for calling it, quote, very anti-Semitic. We know that last week the Department of Homeland Security has tried to revoke the international student enrollment program for Harvard, saying that Harvard is accountable for fostering violence, anti-Semitism, as well as coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. Of course, that fight is now in court as a judge is currently putting an injunction to the DHS's attempt, but it remains to be seen how the upcoming fight with the university will unfold this week as a hearing happens. Back to you.
Iris Tao at the White House. Thank you. Next, it's Memorial Day, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth took time to honor the occasion with a cleanup event over the weekend. He joined his children and others to spend a day cleaning the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington.
Our responsibility to pass that to the next generation. That's what I see days like Memorial Day. It's what they're all about. Veterans Day, it's what it's all about. It's what the 4th of July is all about. We have to very intentionally infuse it into the minds and hearts and souls of young kids so that they understand why it's special and want to pass it as well.
Hegseth described the event as a chance to educate a new generation about the sacrifices made by Americans during war. He added that he hopes to encourage families nationwide to take similar opportunities and reflect on the meaning of Memorial Day. Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins also attended. Actor Gary Sinise is known for playing Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, but he has also worked for decades to support real-life veterans and first responders. Here's Sinise on American Thought Leaders.
Well, I think the government has a great responsibility to take care of the men and women who serve our country. I also believe that we as citizens have a role to play. I don't think there's any way for the government to serve all the needs of the men and women who serve our country and sacrifice. And I just felt that I had a part to play. And it was beyond a part in a movie. It was to do something with the gifts that I've been given, and with Vietnam veterans in my family, and remembering what it was like for them to come home from war and not have the support that they deserved for serving our country, and not have the services provided that that they needed. I was motivated to make sure that, especially post 9/11, when we started deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, that those service members would be taken care of, that they would be honored for their service, they would be shown appreciation and gratitude. And somebody like me who's in the public eye can go out there and do that, and then shine that spotlight on them and draw attention to them and create awareness. And that's what I try to do.
The Gary Sinise Foundation was founded in 2011. It supports veterans, first responders, and their families through a range of programs. One is the RISE program, which builds specially adapted smart homes for severely wounded veterans. Another is First Responder Outreach, providing support for first responders. And the Snowball Express brings children and surviving spouses of fallen military and first responder heroes to Disney World for healing and community. Sinise's band, the Lieutenant Dan Band, has also performed nearly 600 free concerts at military bases and hospitals worldwide over the last 20 years. Gas prices are holding steady for the Memorial Day holiday as tens of millions of Americans hit the road. As of Sunday, the average cost of a gallon of regular unleaded in the United States was $3.18, according to AAA. That's the lowest over a Memorial Day weekend since 2021. Gas prices are also sharply lowered compared with this time last year, when the national average was roughly $3.59, and far lower than 2022, when the average was $4.60 per gallon. More Americans hit the road this Memorial Day weekend, with AAA projecting over 45 million people would drive more than 50 miles between Thursday and today. That's an increase of about 3% from last year. President Trump has delayed tariffs on the European Union until July 9th. Trump also weighed in on Russia's latest attack on Ukraine, calling Russian President Vladimir Putin, quote, crazy. Here's the latest.
President Trump is putting the brakes on a major trade dispute with Europe, at least for now. Trump's 50% tariffs on the EU were supposed to take effect June 1st. But after a call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Trump says he's agreed to push the deadline to July.
And she asked for an extension on the June 1st date. And she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation. July 9th would be the date. That was the date she requested.
Von der Leyen welcomed the tariff delay in a post on X on Monday. Trump previously signaled frustration about trade negotiations, saying, quote, our discussions with them are going nowhere. And on a different front, the president says talks with Iran may be taking a turn for the better. Iranian and U.S. delegation just wrapped up a fifth round of talks in Rome on Friday over Iran's nuclear ambitions with signs of progress. Trump responded on Sunday.
Having to do with nuclear, we've had some very, very good talks with Iran, and I don't know if I'll be telling you anything good or bad over the next 2 days, but I have a feeling I might be telling you something good. We've had some real progress, serious progress.
Meanwhile, a new development in the Russia-Ukraine war. The two sides completed their largest prisoner swap since the beginning of the war on Sunday, exchanging 1,000 prisoners over a 3-day period. However, Russian forces overnight into Sunday launched the biggest aerial attack on Ukraine since the war began, killing at least 12 people. Trump reacted on Truth Social, saying Russian President Vladimir Putin has gone, quote, crazy. During a stop in New Jersey, Trump spoke out about this turn of events.
I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it.
Trump also discussed the possibility of placing more sanctions on Russia.
You've talked before about putting more sanctions on Russia. Is that something you're considering more serious?
Absolutely. He's killing a lot of people. I don't know what's wrong with him.
However, Trump also criticized Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, saying he isn't doing his country any favors, quote, talking the way he does.
The Kremlin today defended Russia's attacks on Ukraine. A spokesman said the country has struck military targets in Ukraine in response to Ukrainian strikes on Russian civilian targets. He also said Moscow is still working on a proposal for a peace deal. A draft has not yet been submitted. Next, a trade analyst based in Brussels, Belgium, said the tariff delays on the EU are useful. This comes as President Trump delayed his threat to impose 50% tariffs on imports from the European Union next month.
More time is always useful if you're trying to get to a deal. The whole situation with Trump threatening at the last minute to impose big tariffs on June 1st was a very sudden move. It was a very destabilizing move. Now, with the supposedly extra time, it's a way for talks to resume again. It's not clear what, if anything, the specific substantive disagreements are about. President Donald Trump has a lot of complaints about the EU and about the way it runs its tax system and its regulations and in general the way it runs its economy. Are these things that the U.S. can negotiate? Depends on what they're trying to accomplish. The EU would like to de-escalate. If there's a compromise that can be found that would take the tension out of the system, that would just pull everyone back from the brink and get rid of some of this uncertainty, that's something Brussels would very much like. If it does go into all-out trade war, Brussels will have to retaliate.
A July 9th deadline now remains to allow for talks between Washington and the 27-nation European Union to produce a deal. Trump has repeatedly expressed dissatisfaction with the European Union for its treatment of the United States on trade. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told him yesterday that the European Union needed more time to come to a trade agreement. Since Trump's April announcement of tariffs on multiple countries, he has made deals with Britain and held discussions with China, but progress with the European Union has been more limited. It's sparking tensions between the two allies over Trump's America First policies and Europe's longtime reliance on Washington for security and defense needs. Coming up, with Republicans' budget bill having passed the House, the Senate is next in line. But Republican senators are warning it's not going to make it far in the chamber. We have the latest.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special T-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
Welcome back. Former New York Congressman Charles Rangel has died at the age of 94. He represented Harlem in Congress for over 40 years. Rangel served in the U.S. Army from 1948 through 1952 and received a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star with Valor for his efforts in Korea. In 1961, he was named Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. 5 years later, Rangel's political career began as New York State lawmaker. In 1970, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in New York's 18th district to begin a 23-term run. During his time in Congress, Rangel took on many roles. He was on the House Judiciary Committee during President Richard Nixon's impeachment hearings. Rangel became a member of the House Ways and Means Committee in 1975, years later rising to the chairman of the panel. He also co-founded and chaired the Congressional Black Caucus. Rangel retired from Congress in 2017. Next, House Republicans celebrated last week after passing their big budget bill, but some GOP senators say the celebrations came too soon. They warn that the budget's impact on the debt means it's not going to make it far in the upper chamber without big changes. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
The bill is passed.
House Speaker Mike Johnson over the weekend took a victory lap after passing the GOP's massive budget bill.
It's the most consequential legislation that Congress will pass in many generations, and it's a long time coming.
It makes Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent, eliminates tax on tips, and boosts funding for the Pentagon and Trump's immigration efforts, all while making controversial changes to Medicaid and SNAP benefits, a piece Democrats are honing in on in opposition.
Now Trump and his allies are going to cut Medicaid, and it's going to drive a lot of these providers out of business.
Republicans don't need Democrats' support to pass the budget in the Senate, but some Republican votes are already off the table due to the bill's $4 trillion debt limit increase.
And borrowing this money just isn't fiscally conservative. I've told them I can support the package if they separate the debt ceiling off and have a separate vote on that. I want nothing to do with that. I didn't vote for the spending. I didn't vote for the debt.
A Congressional Budget Office report predicts that the House's budget will add nearly $3.8 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. The House Speaker denies the report over the weekend, touting the spending cuts.
We're going to cut over $1.5 trillion in spending, and it's a big leap forward. The last time we had a spending cut was 3 decades ago, and it was only $800 billion. Even adjusted for inflation, this is the biggest spending cut, I think, in the history of government on planet Earth. Now, is it enough? Of course not. But we have a very delicate balance, and we have to start the process.
Republican Senator Ron Johnson, though, says there are enough GOP senators in opposition to stop the process entirely until more spending changes are made.
One of my disappointments with what the House process is about, the only number we ever heard about was $1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot, but it's only $150 billion per year. And this is put in context of the fact that in 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion. This year we'll spend over $7 trillion.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes to pass the bill, and he's already vowed to make sweeping changes to it. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
President Trump says he might double down on financial cuts to Harvard. The president now floats the idea of giving billions of dollars to trade schools instead. Trump took to social media this morning saying he is, quote, considering taking $3 billion of grant money away from a very anti-Semitic Harvard and giving it to trade schools all across our land, unquote. This comes after the administration moved to block the Ivy League school from enrolling foreign students. Trump says he's still waiting for the foreign student lists from Harvard so we can determine who should not be let back into our country. Harvard enrolled almost 7,000 international students in its current school year. The Trump administration argues that many of them support anti-American movements like Hamas. Harvard says the international student bloc and earlier financial cuts violate the law. The school is now suing the administration. 24 Republican attorneys general are urging Congress to expand concealed carry rights nationwide, allowing people with concealed carry permits to carry firearms in all states that allow the practice. In a letter to House leaders, the group called concealed carry a constitutional right with potential safety benefits. They argued current laws unfairly penalize legal gun owners traveling between states. The AGs are backing H.R. 38, the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, introduced earlier this year. Gun control advocates, including the group called Everytown for Gun Safety, oppose the bill, warning it could override local safety laws. At least 11 people are in the hospital after a shooting in Little River, South Carolina. The shooting happened around 9:30 p.m. last night in the community just north of Myrtle Beach. Police have not yet given any updates on the conditions of anyone injured. As of late last night, authorities say this appears to be an isolated incident with no ongoing threat to the public. Investigators are still working to determine what led to the violence. Police are warning the public to rely only on verified sources for updates. Texas is taking steps to require the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms. The State House gave preliminary approval to the measure on Saturday. A final vote is expected in the coming days. If it passes, the bill heads to Governor Greg Abbott, who has already said he'll sign it into law. Similar laws have been passed in Louisiana and Arkansas, but in Louisiana, a federal judge paused the law last year, calling it unconstitutional. The ruling followed a lawsuit by several plaintiffs who argue the mandate pressured students into religious observance, violating their First Amendment rights. Supporters of the law say the 10 Commandments reflect values that shaped the nation's legal and educational systems. Opponents say it blurs the line between church and state. An alleged cartel member wanted by the U.S. government is reported dead after a police operation in Mexico. The State Department previously offered $1 million for information leading to his arrest. U.S. officials say the suspect was a key member of a criminal organization. The group is allegedly involved in fentanyl smuggling. Mexico's security secretary now says the suspect died during a police operation. The U.S. had offered a reward of up to $1 million for his capture. The man faced a host of charges, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and weapons possession. President Trump says U.S. steel will stay under American control, even following a deal with Nippon Steel. Here are the details.
It'll be controlled by the United States. Otherwise, I wouldn't make the deal. I went to the unions, to all of the local unions. They all wanted it.
As part of a merger announced Friday, Nippon Steel will invest $14 billion in the U.S. firm. That includes $4 billion on a new steel mill. Trump said the move would create some 70,000 jobs. Now he describes the deal as an investment resulting in partial ownership, though many details remained unclear. Investors hope it will be close to the takeover plan originally put forward in 2023. Most expect to get a cash payout for their shares if and when U.S. Steel ceases trading in its own right. If it goes ahead, the deal would create the world's third largest steel maker, behind China's Baowu Group and Europe's ArcelorMittal. But the potential takeover has become politically charged amid fears over foreign control and concern that it could mean job losses in Pennsylvania. Trump had previously opposed the deal over such concerns. But U.S. Steel stock surged by 21% on Friday after he expressed support for what he called the planned partnership. Investors took that as the final green light for a takeover. In Asian trade Monday, Nippon Steel shares were up around 2% by early afternoon.
Moving on, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk says he's going back to working around the clock, this after a major outage hit his social media platform X. The disruption peaked on Saturday with more than 25,000 user reports of issues, including problems creating or viewing posts. Musk responded by saying he'll once again be sleeping in conference rooms and server facilities to address major operational improvements that need to be made. Musk stressed the need to stay super focused on X, XAI, Tesla, and SpaceX, with key technologies rolling out. There is also a major Starship launch on the horizon. The outage affected users across the US, Europe, and Asia. This follows a similar X platform outage in March, which Musk blamed on a cyber attack. Coming up, President Trump delays the implementation of 50% tariffs on the European Union until July 9th. Our guest economist joins us for analysis after the break.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. President Donald Trump delays 50% tariffs on the European Union until July 9th. The Sunday announcement came after a call with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen earlier that day. Plus, pay-related worker protests spread across China amid that country's trade war with the U.S. Daniel Lacalle, chief economist at Tresis, joins us to break it all down. Good to have you, Daniel. What do you make of Trump's move to delay the 50% EU tariffs?
I think it's a smart move. If you think about it, the negotiations were stalling. It seems that the European Union was taking a little bit more time than one would have imagined to present a comprehensive and detailed trade package that would be acceptable for both the European Union and the United States. And what President Trump basically did was make them jump, no, put fire below them, as Secretary of State of the Treasury said, no. And I think that basically what is important to remind people is that what the United States and the European Union need to do is to actually follow what the Mario Draghi report recommended to the European Union and the European Commission, which is to lift non-tariff barriers, lift tariff barriers, improve the trade between the United States and the European Union, and stop all these regulatory burdens and tariff burdens that make no sense and that are hurting U.S. companies. So I think that U.S. companies will benefit, but interestingly enough, if all these elements are taken into account, what we are likely to see is that European companies will benefit as well, like with the UK trade deal.
Okay, and the president said he was recommending 50% tariffs on the EU in the first place because talks with the bloc were, quote, going nowhere. What was happening that led him to say that?
Well, I think that a number of things. First, what we know from the tariff negotiations is that the European Union team did not want to touch upon the non-tariff barriers. They did not want to talk about anything related to regulation, anything related to taxation, anything related to legislation. And they were only presenting vague proposals relative to automobile, the automotive sector, agricultural sector, and the farming sector. So all those things basically led to more than a little bit more than gestures, actually. And I think that what the reason why the U.S. Team was so frustrated is because we had seen a very comprehensive and positive deal with the UK that should have been the blueprint for the European Union trade deal. And more importantly, it's that the European Union trade deal should have been the easiest one to implement, because the only thing that needed to be done was actually to implement what Mr. Draghi had presented to the European Commission only a few months prior.
Well, now we'll find out if they indeed will make some of the changes now that this 50% tariff is looming over their head, a sort of sword of Damocles. Switching gears, the Epoch Times says workers in a multitude of sectors and regions in China have been openly protesting since April 1st because they're no longer getting paid. These include sectors like automotive, construction, mining, electronics. Are these protests a direct repercussion of tariffs on China?
I think they are. I think that they're a direct repercussion, because what we have seen is that many of the Chinese exporters are facing a very, very dangerous working capital problem. They are seeing that their products are being piling in the storage facilities and imports. Products are not being sold. The idea that China could have exported to other countries has been completely abandoned. And many of these companies find themselves with a real revenue and cost problem. So it's not just the working capital challenges that are bringing many of these exporters to the brink of bankruptcy. It's also the challenges of an internal market that is simply not working. Internal demand is very, very poor, and China faces the double negative impact. On the one hand, it has found out that it cannot offset and substitute the U.S. consumer for, let's say, any other consumer in the world. And number two, it has also found out that it's virtually impossible to lift internal demand as the government wanted to. So those two things are hurting a lot of sectors that are finding revenues declining, profits declining, and debt soaring.
So, of course, the United States put 145% tariffs on China, which is what you're saying is a direct repercussion of these, what the protests are a direct repercussion of. But of course, China put 125% tariffs on the U.S. So what does this say about the U.S.? Because we didn't, about China, about their economy, because the U.S. did not have pay-related protests.
Well, it says a lot. It basically shows that in the analysis that we have seen from many economists regarding the trade war, as they call it, very few people actually took into account the challenges of overcapacity. So the problem of overcapacity is not in the United States, is in China. China needs to address its overcapacity problem by exporting more and by getting more product outside of their country. And therefore, what we are seeing is that two separate things are happening. In the United States, we have seen real wage growth rising, 4%. We have seen unemployment declining, jobs being created, and the economy strengthening in the private sector. And the current estimates for the second quarter GDP of the United States stand at about plus 2.4%. So ultimately, what we are seeing in a nutshell and in summary is that the world did not analyze correctly the problem of overcapacity and working capital that many of these exporters would face on a situation in which there would be tariffs. So right now, it is pretty evident that it is the producers who are carrying the burden of tariffs, and is also pretty evident that that is why there needs to be a trade deal fast, because if not, those working capital problems will lead immediately to bankruptcy problems.
It sounds serious. Before we go, Daniel, the Chinese regime is strengthening ties with Latin America. For example, they're making new diplomatic and economic deals in the region this month. What explains this strategy and why now?
Well, obviously, the Chinese regime wants to strengthen ties with Latin America, and it has been strengthening ties with Latin America. But there is also a second thing that people are not talking about, which is the absolute disaster of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative has created an enormous debt problem and a lot of unpaid commitments and delinquencies. All these things are leading to a new direction from the Chinese regime, which is to look for commercial ties with countries that have a more robust and solid level of credit and credibility. No? So ultimately, it's basically trying to find new areas to strengthen their financial position and become the financer of first resort for many of these economies. I think that obviously with Mexico, with Brazil, that is very likely to happen. But I think it's also quite more difficult because ultimately, what China is finding out is that you cannot substitute the US consumer, the European consumer, developed nation consumers with Latin America or African consumers. That definitely leads to more challenges than the alleged benefits, and we have seen it with the Belt and Road Initiative.
Well, it certainly is a new era for trade in the world. Daniel Lacalle, Chief Economist at Tresis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem was in Israel today. She said the visit was to show solidarity with Israel after the fatal shooting in Washington last week of 2 Israeli embassy employees.
President Trump extends his greetings and his grief to all of you, and he stands with you as we fight this hatred in the world and know that Yaron and Sarah's lives will be of significance and will matter and will bring a unity among us that will help us defeat our enemies.
Noem said Trump had asked her to come to Israel after the shootings of Sarah Milgram, an American citizen, and Yaron Lashinsky, an Israeli. Suspect Elias Rodriguez said he did it for Palestine, according to court papers. Noem arrived in Israel yesterday and met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Before visiting Israel, Noem was in Bahrain. She met with King Hamad and U.S. Coast Guard members stationed in Bahrain. A U.S.-German dual citizen is facing federal charges after allegedly attempting to firebomb the U.S. Embassy branch office in Tel Aviv. Federal prosecutors say 28-year-old Joseph Neumeier showed up outside the building on May 19th carrying a backpack full of Molotov cocktails. He allegedly confronted a security guard, then fled, leaving the explosives behind. According to the court filings, Neumeier was tracked to a nearby hotel and taken into custody. Prosecutors say his social media accounts included threats against the U.S., calling for the assassination of President Trump. A Chinese citizen is accused of impersonating a U.S. Marshal while trying to scam a New York resident. He attempted to get the victim to hand over $98,000. The St. Lawrence County Sheriff's Office announced last week that it arrested Chi Li-ching and charged him with attempted second-degree grand larceny. WWNY-TV reported that Chi is from Flushing, New York. He was arrested before he was able to collect the money. Chi appeared in a local court and was released after being informed of the charges against him. He was later taken into custody by Homeland Security for immigration violations. Data show there's been a substantial increase in government impersonation scams in recent years. The sheriff's office warned that law enforcement never demands cash payments. It advised people to contact authorities if they are being pressured by someone claiming to be an official. COVID-19 is making headlines again. The World Health Organization has designated a new strain as a variant under monitoring. This comes as reports indicate a resurgence of the virus in mainland China. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
The WHO says the MB181 variant poses a low risk to public health at the global level. Current COVID-19 vaccines are expected to remain effective against this variant, both for symptomatic and severe disease. Although some countries have reported an increase in cases and hospitalizations, the WHO notes there's no evidence that NB181 causes more severe illness than other variants currently in circulation. The WHO defines a variant under monitoring as a COVID-19 strain that may require prioritized attention and monitoring. It's of lower concern than either a variant of interest or a variant of concern. The update comes amid a reported uptick in COVID-19 cases in China. Patients there have described a severe burning throat pain, what locals refer to as razor blade throat, likening the sensation to swallowing shattered glass. The director of the Infectious Diseases Department at a Beijing hospital said the resurgence of COVID-19 is expected to peak sometime late this month. China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention says the NB181 variant is now the dominant strain in the country. Since the pandemic began in 2020, the Chinese Communist Party has faced long-standing accusations of concealing data, particularly regarding the virus's death toll. COVID-19 first emerged in Wuhan, China in late 2019. In April, the Trump administration updated its COVID-19 website to reflect the theory, widely asserted early on, that the virus originated from a high-security virology lab in Wuhan. Meanwhile, the CDC's airport screening program has detected multiple cases of the NB181 variant in the U.S. Records show international travelers arriving in California, Washington, Virginia, and New York have tested positive. Other states, including Hawaii, Ohio, and Rhode Island, have also reported cases that are not linked to airport screenings. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The State Department is raising the alarm after Malaysia detained dozens of Falun Gong practitioners. The arrests came before and during a visit from Chinese leader Xi Jinping. 2 days before Xi's arrival in mid-April, police officers appeared at a private venue where nearly 80 Falun Gong practitioners had gathered for a routine study of spiritual texts. The officers demanded their IDs and forcibly detained them. Those arrested included a woman older than 80 and a 10-year-old child. The mass arrest marked the first of its kind in Malaysia. The State Department expressed concern about the reports. It called on the CCP to end its nearly 26-year campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. It also demanded that China cease its attempts to pressure other governments to repress the peaceful meditation practice. Coming up, after over 90 years, Team USA takes gold at the World Hockey Championship. Tage Thompson seals the win in overtime against Switzerland. That and more.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too? and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted in spectacular fashion yesterday with lava fountains exceeding 1,000 feet. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The USGS said the latest episode began a little after 4 a.m. local time. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory said activity began in the north vent, escalating to high fountains about an hour later. The south vent followed with smaller fountains about 30 minutes later. Kilauea began its current eruption period on December 23rd last year. After more than 9 decades, the U.S. is back on top of the hockey world. The United States defeated Switzerland 1-0 in overtime yesterday to capture its second ever World Hockey Championship and its first since 1933. Buffalo Sabres star Tage Thompson fired a wrist shot past Swiss goalie Leonardo Giannoni at 2:02 in overtime, securing the historic win. The last time the U.S. won the world title was in Prague in 1933, where they edged out Canada 2-1. Boston Bruins goaltender Jeremy Swayman was stellar in net, making 25 saves and finishing the tournament with a perfect 7 wins. 0 losses, a record. In a touching moment on the ice, U.S. players held up a jersey honoring Johnny Gaudreau, the forward tragically killed alongside his brother Matt last August. The two were struck while bicycling in their home state of New Jersey, just 1 day before their sister's wedding. Gaudreau remains the all-time leading scorer for the U.S. at the World Championships with 43 points. A record-breaking Memorial Day weekend at the box office. The live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch and the adrenaline-fueled Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning racked up around $5 million in worldwide ticket sales.
Moviegoers flocked to theaters over the Memorial Day weekend to see the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch and the adrenaline-fueled Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. The two films combined racked up nearly $500 million in worldwide ticket sales and lifted the US and Canadian box office to set a 3-day holiday ticket sales record. The family-friendly Lilo and Stitch also set a domestic box office record for the first 3 days of the long holiday weekend, bringing in around $146 million through Sunday. That is one of the strongest performances for a remake of a Disney animated feature, according to Disney. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise reprising his role as the death-defying spy Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible pulled in $190 million in global ticket sales, with about a third of that in the US and Canada.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Those numbers may have been helped by a massive marketing blitz by Paramount in the lead-up to the film's release to promote the culmination of the nearly 3-decade-old film series. The strong holiday weekend haul marks an encouraging start to the summer, which typically accounts for 35 to 40% of the annual domestic box office. It also provides a shot in the arm for theater owners after a dismal March, when ticket sales were down 45% from a year earlier.
Coming up, DOJ reports billions of Medicaid dollars may be slipping through the cracks due to fraud and abuse. Now, new rules could require many recipients to work or volunteer to keep their benefits. We have that and more after the break.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, 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 and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris. Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's a